I'd like to welcome to the podcast today, Peter Brissette. Peter is the owner and founder of DMD Consulting. He's the digital marketing dude.
That's right.
That's so funny. Peter and his team provide a slew of services to businesses all over the country, including marketing strategy, a reviews service, websites, and branding. And also, he's a Facebook Jedi Master, he tells me. I don't know what that means, but...
I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, tell me about that. Let's start there. We can skip all my other questions.
I'm not really a Facebook Jedi Master, but I had this, was it on Facebook? Must have been on the app where you could take a picture where it looks like you're holding a sword.
Okay.
And so I have this crazy weird look on my face with this glowing sword thing.
Love it.
Yeah. So.
And you're a Jedi Master.
I mean, I have a lightsaber.
I have a lightsaber.
And it's on Facebook. So it must be true.
It's totally true.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Jamie. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I know. You're one of my favorite people, and I was, I think I gotta just start telling my favorite people.
I think that's a great idea.
Sorry, yell at the dog.
Oh, he found his way through.
There he goes. Okay. So my favorite question.
Yes.
What was your first job?
Let's see. My first job. I think the first job that I had was selling. I was selling the Denver Post door to door.
How old were you?
I was probably 12. It was a summer job, and I don't even remember how I came across this or found it. But yeah, this dude would come in a white panel van.
I think I remember
right?
this happening.
and there'd be a bunch of us, 12, 13, 14-year-olds in the back of the van.
You just hop in the back of the van.
Just hop in the back of the van.
See ya, that's fine.
And he would drop us off in these neighborhoods. And, I assume, I can't remember now, but I assume he gave us a little bit of training on what to say and what to do. And go up and knock on doors and overcome a lot of fears. Knocking on strangers' doors and asking them to buy something from me. So it was good. It was a fun summer job and had a great time doing it.
The white panel van.
I know.
That just blows my mind.
It's kind of like, what?
That
you got in the
so
back
weird.
of a white panel van?
Yeah,
it's a
and
little
it
creepy.
just drove you around. That's not normal.
Nope, jumped right in there.
So what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my gosh. I wanted to be a few different things, I would say. One of the first things that I wanted to be, my dad was a computer programmer, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. So I really wanted to be a computer programmer and, try to study math and things like that and do something in that area. So I'm not too far from a computer programmer now.
Really not.
Kind of in that technology space. But yeah, that was kind of my first big thing I thought I would be when I grew up.
That's funny. So what started you to start DMD?
Okay, so how far back should I go?
I don't care. I love it. All the way back if you want. It's my favorite.
So I tend to call myself a reluctant entrepreneur.
We all are.
So
I think we all kind of are.
Right? Well,
depends on the day.
I meet some people though, right? They start out as an entrepreneur and they just continue it, right?
I think those people are more rare.
I think it's and I admire that, right? Because they have the mindset for that. But I aspire to entrepreneurship. One of the summer jobs I had a few years later was I just started going around asking people what they needed. Mm-hmm. Can I mow your yard? Do you want to pull wheat? Like whatever.
Jack of all trades.
And I had a car, and so I just drove around. That's what I did all summer while all my friends had these regular jobs. I'd make great money. I'd be done by like 3:00, and I'd be like, "What are you guys doing?" "We're working." I'm like, "That's stupid." This is the dumbest thing ever. So I've always had that. And, through the years, I looked at trying different things, but I never had, what's the thing I can offer? What's the thing I can do? I didn't know what that was. So, and I think in general, just a lot of fear.
Right.
Being afraid of what would I do? How can I make it work? I don't know anything.
Mm-hmm. The imposter syndrome stuff. I was talking to somebody yesterday about imposter syndrome and how very real that is for pretty much every entrepreneur I've ever talked to.
Yeah, where you feel like you're a fake.
Yeah. Or like, well, what do I have to offer?
Right.
Why me?
Well, and in general, we as humans, we undervalue ourselves,
Yeah.
right? We don't see the intrinsic things that we're naturally good at,
Right.
because we're naturally good at it.
Right.
But someone else who isn't looks at us and goes, wow, you're a genius.
Yeah.
And you're like, what, that thing? That's nothing.
Right. Like being extremely detail oriented. People are like, you're extremely, observant and detail oriented. Isn't everybody?
Yeah, I thought everybody was.
Oh,
like
that's a strength. Oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So all those different things, feed into this. But anyway, I decided what really drove me to start looking at what I really need to do was learning about this thing called the 80-20 principle,
right?
The Pareto Principle,
right?
Which basically says 20% of whatever you do produces 80% of the result. Mm-hmm. And so I came across this probably 15 years ago, started reading about it, studying it. I'm like, this is really interesting. So the company I was at the time, I was in a cubicle doing sales, technology sales, manufacturing, and I had a client base of about 1,000 clients over 13 states. And I thought, I'm going to do this 80-20 comparison and see if this is real. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, 20% of my customers, 80% of the revenue. Mm-hmm. I even did it by state. Each state had the same thing.
I love it.
Then I said, well, this can't be true for the whole company. So then I did the whole companies. Same thing. I'm like, wow, this is so weird. And so I thought, well, what do I do with this? Mm-hmm. Great information. What do you do with that? And what I came to was, what if I qualified each new prospect differently, mm-hmm. and said, does this client have the potential to move into that category of being in the top 20%? Mm-hmm. They have the potential, or they don't. And should I treat them the same? Mm-hmm. And what I decided is I wouldn't treat them the same. I would put them in a different category, a different bucket. So me and my teammate that was working with me at the time, we would focus on the top 20%, taking care of those clients, mm-hmm. and qualifying new prospects that fit. Everybody else went into a different bucket and hired someone else to take care of all of them and all their needs, because they took up a ton of time,
right?
But there was no revenue really behind it, no long-term revenue. So that's what we did. Well, so what I discovered was this idea that we talk about now with like 3 to 5 Club and stuff, mm-hmm. is how do you make more money in less time? Mm-hmm. 80-20 is all about how do you make more money in less time. So I realized I literally could work 4 hours a day and get better results than what I was getting before. This is where I ran into the problem. My employer had different idea about this.
Right.
Like, that's great. You're doing that in 45 hours a week. Why don't you work 50?
Right.
And then I was like, crap. This will never work.
Right, because you're going to be penalized for actually being more efficient.
So I can never achieve my goal of working less to make more. Never going to work. And so I left. A good job, good benefits, all of the good stuff, low stress job, which I hated, by the way.
Right.
It wasn't
which was sucking my soul.
It was literally sucking my soul away from me.
Yes.
And I always felt out of place. I felt like, what's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. I was constantly asking myself, what's wrong with me? Why don't I fit in here, mm-hmm. To this environment? And so that started a progress over a few really messy years of trying different things and looking at different options, and finally getting fired multiple times, mm-hmm. where I'm like, okay, fine. The economy was in the tank. It's 2009. Got fired from my last job that I had for 2 months.
We call those divine firings.
Fired me. I was never so happy in all my life. And I said, all right, I got to figure something out. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to find another decent sales job. The economy's in the tank. Nobody's hiring. What do I do? So thankfully I had a good mentor at the time, kind of, gave me some direction. And that's really where I started. What I had learned, I started picking up some of this stuff about marketing on my own. A lot of these companies I worked for were smaller companies, and I'd be like, all right, I'm your sales guy. where's my leads?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I expected them to go, well, we have this and this, and here you go, call them.
Mm-hmm.
And they would hand me a phone book.
You're like, you don't even have a funnel.
Wait, this is a phone book? I got to generate my own leads too? Like, I'm not just the sales guy, I'm also the lead generation guy on top of that. So that's really what got me pushing towards marketing and studying marketing and taking every workshop I can take and studying a lot of online marketing in particular in the lead generation space. So I started testing a lot of things on my own. One of the last few jobs I had kind of gave me a little free run of doing things and testing things and playing with things. So it gave me a chance to get a few experiences under my belt with that. So I'm like, well, I know this thing, so let me figure this out. And I think one of the questions you were going to ask me about is the biggest niche that we work in, which is really where this all started, was in that senior care assisted living space. I had discovered, so the last job I had, they told me to look at the assisted living industry. And I said, awesome. What's that?
What does that mean?
What is assisted living? I don't even know what that means. So my perception of senior care was, nursing homes, horrible, terrible environments where we put our old people. So I found this association here in Colorado, and I started going to their events, get to know the people. And what I really found was these really caring, wonderful people who really care about seniors. It was much more than just, we're in this to make money. They were, obviously they were.
They do.
But they cared, they genuinely cared about people and wanted to serve that population. So it really became for me, as I was transitioning from that job to, what can I do for you guys? How can I help the association? I'm not going to be a caregiver, right, and doing the things that you do, but I can help you some other way. And just getting to know them, and I started helping with the events, and eventually got to know a lot of these owners. So sooner or later, I was like, hey, your website kind of sucks. You could pay me.
Everybody's on the internet now.
Yeah, you could pay me to fix that
on a
for
website.
And so that was really the first real big one. The one big struggle I had early on, and I think a lot of business owners have this struggle again with undervaluing our value and what we're worth, right? And what I can charge for something. One of the last things I did when I left that last job is I delivered $100,000 proposal. $100,000. I had no problem doing that. But then I went to ask this guy to build his website, and my proposal was $3,000.
Right.
I was scared to death. Like, I literally was shaking. I was so nervous and so scared about that. But thankfully he said yes. So once I got over that little hurdle, and that was a key moment for me of asking for that and waiting for the answer and him saying yes, to be going at that moment, I said, okay, I can do this. I can make this work. And that was a big deal. It was like, I'm a new man.
The sky opened.
I'm a different person now, all of a sudden. And so that was kind of the process. So once I got that guy, the next one came along, another assisted living community, and it just kind of snowballed from there within that space pretty quickly. So, and then I picked up another big client really within about 18 months. We were making money. I was really busy, which, that leads to a whole nother set of issues. But,
right.
But I'd launched a business. I started a business that was paying the bills.
That's so crazy.
And had to be forced to do it. And obviously that whole transition, that 18 months though was hard, just from the early days of, I had no money. I had no savings. I didn't plan this.
Right. I think most of us don't.
So I was washing windows, like residential windows. I'd go wash people's windows during the day, deliver pizza at night, and then in between here and there,
right,
try to pick up a client. But again, when I walked into Pizza Hut and said, I'm done, and it really became a realization, like, is the $15 an hour I'm making delivering pizza
Right.
worth as much as I could be doing something else?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's time to quit that and take the next step to the next thing.
I don't know any entrepreneur that doesn't have more than one hustle. I mean, I saw somebody the other day that I had coffee with a couple of weeks ago, like working at Bike Source. I was like, hi, I didn't know this was your side hustle. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I was like, maybe you just work here for the discount. But like,
right.
I forget that. I forget that most of us have more than one thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are constantly adding things.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's once you figure out how to do something a little bit, and you can see that if I can put something together and I can do something and make something happen, then the next thing that we really want is not so hard to accomplish because we found a pattern that works.
Yeah, like, and we're still building on those things.
Always, constantly.
I know, it's constant changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pricing stuff is interesting. Actually, I mean, I've walked you through our pricing structure and how we do our packages and all of that. And it's been a journey to come up with those packages. And we're like on the second iteration, and I'm about to throw out the third iteration. Like, I'm working on, revamping and fixing and tweaking and creating different offerings.
And especially for you of going, okay, I don't want to be the traditional.
Well, yeah, because we're not.
Right? Because you're not. And how do we create a structure that works for us and works for our clients?
Yeah, that's not traditional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that takes iteration.
It does.
It takes testing.
It does. It does take
trying different things.
Yeah, totally.
Being courageous.
I was just talking to a mentor the other day. I was like, I need you to sit down and talk to me about my pricing. And he's like, double them. Like, let's go here. Like, and I was like, okay, all right, can do. Like, I've already done it, 2 or 3 times, and a no is a no, and that's fine. It can fit.
Yep.
But something we all work on, I think, as business owners.
Yes.
And I talk to business owners all the time about raising prices. And then they do it, and they don't lose any customers, and they're like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I now have time.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's that 80-20 too. You might lose 20.
You might lose some, but what does that create capacity for you to do what's going to be better? What's the next client that's going to be 2 or 3 times the value of that client that you had that you may have lost?
Yeah.
Who didn't see your value?
Right. And I had a client who I convinced to raise prices pretty significantly, and I was like, well, how many customers did you lose? He's like, none. And I was like, you didn't raise them high enough.
Yeah, you should have gone.
He's like,
you didn't go quite enough.
I know. He's like, I'm home at 6 every night now. He's like, I'm not.
Wow.
He works in the service industry where it's appointment after appointment.
Right.
He's like, but I'm home for dinner every night. Like, he's got 4 girls. I'm home for dinner every night.
That's amazing.
I was like,
yeah.
Is it worth it? Let's do this again.
Yeah.
Let's lose some of these
people.
And
you take a little bit of pressure off, right? Because you feel like, we're so in survival mode.
Right.
Especially early on, right? We're total survival mode. How can I pay the rent?
Mm-hmm.
Right? The rent's due tomorrow and I need the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to work those extra hours and do those extra things. Or sometimes if we're a little strategic and we get some outside eyes and get somebody that can go, I don't think you're charging enough. Mm-hmm. Right? Those simple things can really transform your business.
Yeah.
And your life.
I know. It's really interesting. And a lot of time it's like the flip of the conversation. Well, I don't have enough money. Okay. Well, how can you make more?
Right.
How do we get you making more?
Yes.
And you and I do that with business owners all the time, I think.
All the time.
All right. Well, since we went completely off script, let's try to get
Where else do we want to go here?
We'll bring it right back. So what has been the greatest success in DMD to date?
Let's see. Our greatest success. I think for me right now, what I think is the greatest success is how we've developed as a team and how we work together and just how we really like working together and creating that kind of culture and environment.
Which is my next question.
Yeah, because we, I worked in that corporate environment.
Right.
Even in the smaller companies that were, pretty good. They had decent cultures, but they weren't intentional about their culture in how they wanted to build it. But in those corporate environments where, it's so industrial age, you're a cog in the machine. And not really valued beyond, here's what we need you to do.
You're a widget.
If you go outside of this, like, we don't even know what to do with you.
Yeah, we don't know how
We're very confused.
We don't know how to help that.
On how to help you. So it's really not about how do we help this individual become more. It's just about do this thing, and that's all I care about. And what are your metrics on doing this thing? And that's it.
Which might have no tie to whatsoever to what that person's doing.
Could be irrelevant. And so we don't value in that human resource. I mean, just the term human resource is, that's what a machine is. A tool is a resource.
Right.
But a human is not a resource. A human is a human. And so that's something that early on, I was definitely a manager,
right,
and tried to manage things from that perspective. And so, in a lot of it, again, when we're talking about 3 to 5 Club. We said we're not going to talk about 3 to 5 Club.
We can talk to them about 3 to 5
But 3 to 5 Club.
So 3 to 5 Club is a networking and business development program, which probably we've mentioned before, but here in the Denver area and across the country, maybe internationally, there's
all
some
over the world.
All over the world. So Peter and I are in the same club. He's the president, and I'm his VP.
That's right.
That's right. So
you do all the work.
Yeah, that's right. I do all the work. So anyway, so 3 to 5 Club, participation age, is kind of what we're talking about. It's this buzzword, participation age, that's been kind of rapid firely going through the business communities lately.
I think there's been tremendous growth. Like, it's growing faster. People are really starting to realize that the way we've been doing this is wrong. We basically have taken the factories of old,
right,
and we build great big buildings and put offices in them, and
treat people like
even schools look a little bit like modern
Absolutely
factories. So so getting back to how do we help this person become more, and it's not just about the job they do, but really having people in a team that buy into the vision and the mission of the business, and share in that, and are willing to be a part of that. But it has to come with the idea of sharing, like, we're sharing in this together.
There's significance in what we're creating,
which means
not just a paycheck.
Which means it's not me telling you what to do. It's me saying, here's the result that I want to see happen.
Or here's the problem.
What's the training you need? How can I provide resources for you? Can I mentor you? Can I coach you? How do we help you accomplish this? I'm not the one figuring everything out.
What has been the biggest obstacle in creating that kind of culture? And
I think one of the bigger obstacles is just that most people aren't used to working in that environment. Like, they're not used to someone saying, you decide.
Right. You have a
and
brain.
They're looking at me like, well, I want to make sure I'm doing what makes you happy, and I want to, they're conscientious, which I appreciate. And they might be afraid of making a mistake, so they haven't worked in environments where it's safe to make a mistake.
Or people believed in them enough to make a choice, see if it works.
Yep. And most of the stuff that we do, in our work is probably not life or death. The decisions that they need to make are not gonna, no one's gonna die.
Right. That's why I always say, like, we do tax services. This is not emergency services.
Right.
Like, it's okay.
Yep. Exactly.
I always say you can break. I was like, you can't break it. You can just delete it, and then we'll just have to redo it.
Yeah.
It's really okay.
And a mistake can almost always be fixed.
And it's almost always a learning.
And you
tool.
will always learn.
Yeah.
You will always learn from that. So being able to help them feel like this is a safe environment, that when I say I want your feedback, that I mean that.
That I actually want you to give me.
Like I'm not just, I'm just not paying lip service to that, because a lot of times what I've found with my team too, it's been a progress to be able to get them to go, yeah, but you're Peter, you're the boss.
Or it's your company.
I can't really tell you what I really feel or what I really think. And, because it might hurt your feelings or you might not like what I have to say. So trying to create that safe environment where they understand that it's okay if you make a mistake. I am giving you the choice. I want you to make the decision. And then you can tell me why you made the decision, and
we can work on it.
If we made a mistake, then we fix it. So that's been the biggest. And honestly, it hasn't taken too long to help them overcome that. But a lot of it is just changing the way I operate, because what I found was when people were asking me questions, anytime you as the business owner, if you want to get some time away from the business, if you're making all the decisions, you can't get away, because what do they do when you're not there?
Right.
And so it's when I'm getting a question, stopping for a second instead of just answering it because I know the answer, and going, why do you think that? Or what's the question? Tell me more about what you're trying to figure out here. Helping lead them to an answer that makes sense, or just flat out saying, I don't care what you decide, you make the choice.
Right. You have free rein.
Pick. Doesn't matter. And let them do it. So a lot of it comes back to, as the leader, of really going, hey, I'm getting a lot of questions. Something's not right. I gotta go back to I gotta practice what I'm really trying to see accomplished here.
And it's a reprogram for a lot of us. Like that doesn't come naturally to a lot.
Because where have we worked or had an experience that was like that?
Most of us haven't.
We're not used to our bosses telling us, in any job that we've had before,
you're smart, you're capable, you can do this.
You have a brain.
You figure it out. Please make the thing work.
Yeah. That's really, it has been more unusual in most work environments.
Which is probably why we all have imposter syndrome.
Exactly. Because we're confused. We don't know. We've never used our brain before.
Right. We don't know because we weren't allowed to, right?
That's right.
And now we have to learn how to not only use ours, but trust people to use theirs.
Exactly.
And I mean, so I had the hire that, wouldn't ever.
She couldn't get past it.
She couldn't get past it. And she would ask me a question and I would ask her a question and she's like, just tell me. And I'm just like, that's not what I'm trying to build here.
Yeah.
Yep. You've been here for 11 months and I'm still reviewing you're still asking me to review emails. Like,
right.
Do the work or don't do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, some people, it's probably going to take them some iteration of time.
Yeah.
To finally grasp that.
But when we're sliding backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. They're not grasping what we're trying to accomplish here.
They're not using their brain.
This is a place that
they're not opting to use their brain.
You can actually grow and do things. Trying to give you an opportunity.
Yeah.
And not everybody's ready for it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So you answered like most of my questions there. So you have implemented some things into your business to help encourage the participation age, like how you pay your people. So can we talk about some of those things you've implemented?
So a little bit, what we're working towards, we're not there yet. What we're working towards is having actual profit sharing. So I think that's really going to be a big key for us. But some of the things that we've done in the meantime, so we have a handful of contractors. So as a contractor, you have a lot of flexibility, kind of work however you want to work. and we like to give them that kind of flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
But for actual employees or W-2 employees, we basically have just said, here's your pay. It's for 40 hours a week. You can take whatever time off you want to take,
Mm-hmm.
as long as the work's getting done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I don't care when you come to work. I don't care when you leave work. You don't have to track your time. You don't have to tell me when you're working. You don't have to tell me when you go to lunch or take a break or any of that stuff. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You're an adult. You figure out what works best for you.
You figure out what you need to do and get it done.
Yeah. This is the work.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get the work done. So let's figure out how we do that. I'm not going to worry about managing things that are not focused on the result.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to manage your hours and your time and all that is not results focused.
Right.
You know, that's where the micromanagement stuff comes in.
And it's so
It drives
hard.
people crazy.
And it's so hard, especially in my background with the CPA stuff. Like,
Yes.
the history and the past of, CPA stuff is very time oriented.
Absolutely.
You're tracking every 10th of a minute because it's all billable time.
Right.
And, your bonuses are based on your billable time
Yes.
and how effective you are, and
Yes.
which turns out to not have, I had no control over any of that.
Right. Right.
Here, I need you to mentor and manage the people, but then I'm going to bonus you on your effective, your billables, which I go back and, write stuff off of, which is completely subjective anyway. So it's just like, okay, I can't win here.
Yeah, this is not going to work. It's not going to work.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Bonuses are not something I'm looking for because that's not something I can achieve.
Yeah, because you had no control.
I had no control over
direct
it.
effect on what you could do with it.
Right. I guess I could have worked 10 more hours a week or sat in a chair for 10 more hours a week. I don't know. It was just like, okay, that math isn't making any sense to me. So.
This is not
and I do
real
math.
math.
I do beans.
It's new math.
Yeah, this math's not apparently
It's the new math.
It's the new math.
Yeah, so so that's one piece. So
Mm-hmm.
they literally, on the holidays, don't worry about holiday pay because they're getting paid anyway.
Yeah, they just get
So we
paid
don't have to
weekly.
track it. They, if they want to take a day off or a couple of days off, that's up to them. So then the other thing that I try to do is just, general recognition things.
Mm-hmm.
When it's their birthday, do something for them on their birthday. Basics, like this is just basics stuff of showing appreciation to
taking care of
people, right? If it's like some special, like we don't really have secretaries, but if it's Secretary's Day, I might do something, for them, or it might be we're working if we're happen to be all together, hey, let's go to lunch. I'm
Mm-hmm.
buying lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to do about quarterly. It's kind of a client appreciation, but we do client appreciation and partner appreciation and employees, and we'll have a little happy hour get together and just hang out and have a good time and do that. So you just try to do little extra things like that they really appreciate. So
That creates more community.
Creates community. Even for we have a couple of contractors that work out of the area. One gal's in Texas, one gal's in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I notice it's their anniversary or something, I might send them something for their family so they can go out to dinner or things like that. So,
don't you guys? Now most of you were in an office space, but before, wouldn't you guys just like do a
we were 100% virtual. We just jump on the Zoom call. So the funny thing about that was
together.
I have all ladies that work for me, all women, and I don't mind jumping on the camera anytime because my makeup's always ready.
Right. They're like, well, then I have to do my hair.
Yeah. So, but that would be the thing. If it was going to be a meeting where the cameras were going to be on for everybody, it was a makeup required meeting. And I had to let them know this is a makeup required meeting.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. That's always fun.
We take longer.
Because if I don't, what happens is sometimes the camera comes on accidentally, and then it's always they're screaming and yelling and turn it off.
It's hilarious.
And then I see them in their no makeup, and I'm like, I'm fine with it.
You're like, I don't care.
It works. I don't have a problem with it. I mean,
That's
it's just
funny.
us. It's not like, we don't have a client on the phone.
I love that you implemented that, though, because it's like everybody works virtually, but you were all working together. It creates kind of some of that more community.
We would even do it. We haven't done it as much since we've been in the office space, but we would just get on like Skype, 3 or 4 of us, and just have it on.
Yeah.
And we were all working, doing our things. We weren't really talking about anything, but
just
you could have the side
together.
conversations, where, oh, hey, did you hear about this? Or, oh, I'm going to do this with my kids tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get more of that stuff that you would normally get socializing in an office space.
Yeah, it can kind of creating more relationships.
It is. Again, I think part of what we have to do to be an effective team is actually care about one another.
Right.
Like we have to care about
and know one another.
And that requires having some knowledge,
mm-hmm.
right? Knowing what's going on in each other's lives and becoming, I wouldn't say we're a family, but we're closer. Then this is just a job. I'm just putting in my hours. I can't wait to go home.
Mm-hmm.
I want to come to work in a place that I want to work at first. And so I want to come to a place where I'm going to enjoy it, that I like working with the people that are around me. So that comes back to the leader making sure that is happening.
That piece happens, especially when everybody's working virtually.
Yes.
Because it does feel kind of isolating.
It's very isolating.
It's really isolating, regardless if you can just chat all day. Having that feeling of community and knowing each other and knowing what's going on in each other's lives is huge.
Yep. Totally.
And having people plugged in.
Yeah.
I love it. We talked about that one. So I have one more final question for you. But before we do that, what is the easiest way for people to find you?
Easiest way, check out our website, dmdude.com. It's a great way to find us. The big thing I have on there right now is our online marketing blueprint. Covers 8 really important areas that a lot of people have just questions in general because they hear this guru say this and this guru say that.
There's so much stuff.
Right? And so I kind of took over the last, 8-9 years of all the frequently asked questions that I get and put it all into a set of videos that kind of hit all the highlights about what do I do about my website? What do I do about social media? What do I do about email marketing? All those big questions. So they can sign up for that. It's free.
I love it.
Yeah. And
I need to go
the videos are pretty short. They're not too long. And there's handouts and everything on there. But
perfect.
Yeah.
All right. dmdude.com to find Peter and his team. So that feeds into my final question, which is, what is the one marketing thing that every business owner should be doing, in your opinion?
All right, the one marketing thing. So here's where I try to advise people when they're looking at how do I decide how am I going to do my marketing? Where do I spend my money on my marketing? How do I make these decisions in time, right? And so what I think you should start with is the things that you own versus the things that you rent.
Right.
So those are two different marketing assets.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that you rent are things like Facebook and Instagram and all these social sites, right? Because, should we be doing that? Sure, but that's rented space. Understand that you're using that under a terms of use.
They could just wipe it out anytime.
That could be destroyed at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that you actually own that belong to you are your website.
Mm-hmm.
You own that. So invest in that. Make that what it needs to be. The second thing you own is your email list.
Right.
You own that. That database is yours. So if you don't have something in place for building that and nurturing that and using that, that's where you can start. So start with what you own, website, email list. And really the third thing that you own is your brand.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are, what's the value that you bring to your customers and clients.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you do to build your value, to increase your value in the services that you provide to your clients?
To be more unique.
Yeah. How do you stand out from the competition and do that? So that's where you should start. Start with what you own.
So website.
Dial that stuff in.
It's really basic.
Yep.
at this point.
And then go, okay, now that I've got the assets that are most important, how can I add on that helps me build these and improve these?
Awesome. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks for being here.
Awesome. High five. Woohoo.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening. If you found this podcast to be inspiring, helpful, and entertaining, please like and subscribe. This helps us grow the community and reach more people. If you are interested in learning more about this episode's guest or accessing any of the books or other resources mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the description box below. Until next time, be abundant.